Lights, camera, action. From Plato to Spielberg, movies have been entertaining and intriguing for ages. Innovations in the growth of cinema, such as cameras, color, and sound, have evolved considerably since the early days of medium. Believe it or not, Plato is considered to be the original film critic because of his infamous critiques regarding the realism depicted in the Cave of Shadows in Rome around 3031 BC. Ancient cultures from around the globe have all left their signatures on modern cinema. The Chinese began studying the use of light and line, while the Egyptians began working with the drawings that included the aspect of motion. These two elements combined are the basis of today's motion picture. The first projected images were introduced by a German Jesuit named Athanasius Kircher during the 13th century. His device, dubbed the magic lantern, worked by using a light source, often a candle, to light his hand-drawn images. The biggest problem with Kircher's invention was the lack of effective light. Early illuminants included the sun, candles, and oil lamps. Much later, limelight and carbon arc lights were introduced. But the final solution arrived several centuries after Kircher with the invention of the electric light. Beginning in the 19th century, quite a few brilliant inventors introduced a number of optical inventions that revolutionized the development of motion pictures. In 1832, Belgian physicist Joseph Plateau invented the phenakistoscope, which consisted of two discs mounted on a single axis. One disc had slots patterned around the edge, while the second contained drawings circling the disc in a concentric guide. When spun in the same direction and viewed in a mirror through the slots in the first disc, the picture appeared to move. In 1877, Charles-Émile Reynaud invented the praxinoscope in Paris. His invention used drawings based on a band inside of a cylinder. Rather than having slots, Reynaud placed mirrors mounted in a ring halfway between the outer edge and the center of the circle. When spun, bewildered viewers watched the images progress in the mirrors. Taking Reynaud's invention one step further, Etienne Jules Marey designed the chronophotographic rifle. Using a circular rotating glass plate, images could be shown at the rate of 12 images per second. A photographer from California named Edward Muybridge is often considered to be the father of modern motion picture. While not the sort of film we would call a movie by today's standards, his production of a horse jumping a hurdle in fluid motion was nothing short of a cinematic breakthrough. With the advent of flexible film in 1889, Thomas Edison was able to take moving pictures to the next level with his invention of the kinetoscope. Edison and his laboratory assistant, William Dickson, developed a way to stop film between images and prevent blurring. Then, they implemented a device inside the camera that would stop each frame in front of the lens and expose the film to light. The final component was the addition of perforations along the edge of the film that allowed it to advance continuously. This is still a common part of projectors and cameras today. Around the same time, two brothers in France, Auguste and Louis Lumière, were approaching film in a whole new way. They wanted to project their films on a big screen and charge admission. The brothers developed a machine called the cinematograph in 1895. Using Edison's perforated film, they produced a lightweight, hand-cranked apparatus that had the capability not only to show movies, but also to film them as well. With the ability to shoot on location, the brothers produced early documentaries, which they called actualities. Experimentation with color in cinema began in the early 1800s with the realization of several variations and methods. The first technique was simply to hand paint the film. This process was extremely labor-intensive as filmmakers had to hire artists to meticulously paint each frame individually. The most famous pioneer of this method was French magician turned filmmaker Georges Méliès. Because of his artistic background, he began devising all types of trick photography, including multiple exposure filming and putting consecutive short pieces together to form a larger film. His most famous film was called A Trip to the Moon, which drew large crowds around the world in 1902. A number of subsequent color techniques followed, including the stenciling method, also known as Pathycolor, which incorporated glass stencils cut and tinted into one of 6 colors by roller-soaked ink. Pathycolor was improved upon later by incorporating several machines to transfer the color quickly. The process reached its height of popularity in the early 20th century and remained a cinematic staple well into the 1930s. The tinting and toning method closely followed the Pathycolor technique. Utilizing only one shade of color per shot, directors were able to establish different settings or moods. While the limitation was significant, the technique developed into the most widely used way of coloring film for a considerable amount of time because of its low cost and the speed with which it could be produced.
Then believe that I'm your Becky and that I love you.
While tinting and toning became the standard for silent movies, the dawn of sound in cinema ushered in the age of Technicolor. It was a difficult system at first due to the amount of precision required by the projectionist running the film. The problem was quickly corrected, and Technicolor has been a mainstay of motion pictures ever since. The first attempt at creating sound into cinema was called the Vitaphone. It was developed by Bell Telephone Laboratories along with Western Electric. The method used photographic cylinders to project sound, and as a result of its cumbersome design, it failed to create a demand for more talking films. Warner Brothers unveiled Vitaphone in New York City with its production of Don Juan. The film only showcased music, but the audience was still in awe of the innovation. The first movies with sound were called talkies. The first one ever made was a 6-minute duet that featured 2 notable singers, Eubie Blake and Noble Sissle. The film was called Snappy Tunes, and it debuted in 1923. It was made with a system called phonofilm that allowed for a soundtrack to be photographically recorded onto film by a beam of light altered by sound waves. 2 years later, Theodore Case filmed what is considered to be the first ever comedy with sound. The film was called Ma, He's Making Eyes at Me, and it featured a notable vaudeville comedian, Gus Visser, as he sang with a duck in his arms. In 1927, the first full-length talkie, The Jazz Singer, was premiered by Warner Brothers. The movie featured Al Jolson singing and ad-libbing lines on camera. The film struck a resounding chord with audiences cementing the talking picture as their new customary format for cinema. From watching shadows move on cave walls to sitting in the gigantic IMAX theaters that we have today's modern world, the evolution of cinema has been influenced by many innovations. The camera is no longer just a novelty. Color and sound are permanent fixtures and more advanced. Cutting-edge techniques are being introduced every day. While most of the original inventors of film have faded into obscurity, their developments have given the world a film industry that will continue to entertain audiences around the world for years to come.